If you're not losing weight, then congratulations, we can now blame it on something else other than ourselves. Well, kind of. What's interesting is that it has to do with something you never would have expected. Now, in general, weight loss comes down mostly to what we all know as energy balance. And we typically measure energy using calories. You know, that number you pretend doesn't exist on your ice cream packaging. This energy balance is often beautifully expressed with the ancient Chinese fitness proverb, calories in versus calories out. Unfortunately, for some, despite doing everything that suggests weight loss should happen, like counting calories, eating less, and exercising more, the scale still doesn't budge much at all. Obviously, this can be very discouraging, and some might start believing that counting calories simply does not work. And thing is, unlike what I tell people what my bench press max is, they're not just making things up. Of course, a good amount of this can be due to inaccuracies with the tools we use. The calories on nutrition labels and calorie counting apps are just estimates. Online expenditure formulas are really rough estimates of the calories we burn. And the random calorie number on your treadmill might as well just be a shrug emoji. So we're in a pretty tough position that requires adjusting our calorie numbers, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you do already, but still, your results might be less than ideal. Well, before you say fuck it and throw away your shake weights and salads, there is one more thing that might explain a good portion of the problem. You see, when it comes to burning more calories, the most common advice is, of course, to exercise more. But what if I told you that exercise might actually be the problem? Now, before we get into this, I do want to make it very clear that for general health and fitness, the benefits of exercise vastly outweigh, no pun intended, any costs. But for weight loss, we already kind of knew that exercise is kind of whatever. Research shows that exercise by itself only marginally improves weight loss. Managing your food intake instead is vastly more superior and practical. But beyond that, something researchers have been observing more frequently is that adding exercise can lead to drastically different effects to the overall calories a person burns throughout the day. Some people burn just as much as expected, some burn slightly more, but some end up burning significantly fewer calories than expected. Researchers have coined this effect as exercise-related energy compensation, which means exactly what it sounds like. Some people compensate for the calories burned from exercise, causing a reduction in their overall calorie expenditure. One study showed compensation at an average of about 300 calories per day, which is what many people calculate for their entire calorie deficit. If they don't account for this compensation, then they'll essentially lose no weight whatsoever. Now, why this exercise compensation happens is not fully understood. Some researchers believe that the human body only wants to use a certain amount of energy at any given time. So it's going to try to compensate for excess energy use from exercise by reducing energy used in other areas. One area some propose is through the slowing of our metabolism, which is something that happens when we reduce food intake. For exercise, however, recent data did not find this being the case. Some propose that it compensates through adaptations to the exercise itself. The idea is that the more you perform a certain exercise, the more efficient your body becomes in producing energy for that exercise, resulting in less energy used. Research does somewhat show this, where after adjusting for body weight, people with high cardiorespiratory fitness levels tend to compensate the most. However, researchers ultimately explain this. What really matters to you and me is that exercise-related energy compensation does happen. So imagine that for a second. Exercise can be the reason, at least partially, as to why your calorie numbers don't make a lot of sense. Now, again, to fully clarify, exercise overall is still great. And on average, when paired with a weight loss diet, people do tend to lose more weight with exercise than without. But in my opinion, compensation can reasonably explain some of the struggles people have with weight loss. So now the question is, if we're gonna still exercise, how do we deal with this? Well, first, we can't really control how much or even if our body compensates for exercise. But the good news is that we now know that exercise compensation can happen, which means we can compensate for that compensation through the things we already do. We can exercise even more or reduce food intake a bit further, as long as it's nothing drastic. We can also change up our exercise to something we're less energy efficient in, like going from a lot of running to lifting weights. Or maybe, and this is my favorite advice, we can just accept the fact that it might take a bit longer to see the results we want. Overall, the goal is to find ways not to prevent compensation, but just to, know that it happens. And as Uncle Ben's original long grain rice used to say, with great knowledge comes greater gains. Or grains, I'm not sure. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a compensatory thumbs up and share it with your weight loss loving friends. Subscribe for more and let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching and don't forget to compensate your protein.